18 years ago, her daughter vanished at summer camp. Today, she finds her singing live on TikTok. Before we dive in, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Your support helps us create more deep and gripping stories just for you. There's more to come. The soft glow of Ellen's phone was the only light in her bedroom, casting long shadows across the faded photo frames on the nightstand. It was well past midnight, but sleep had become an elusive guest in recent years. Instead, TikTok had become her lullaby, short, forgettable clips of strangers dancing, pets doing tricks, and teenagers' lips sinking into eternity. She scrolled without thinking, thumb drifting over the screen in autopilot. A cat in sunglasses, a teenager baking bread, a comedian ranting about gas prices. Then she heard it, a voice, soft, pure, familiar in a way that made her body still instantly. Her finger froze mid-scroll, eyes locked on the screen. A girl, no older than 22, stood in a sunlit room with peeling wallpaper, eyes closed, singing a lullaby. Not just any lullaby, that lullaby. Lay down now, my little bird. The stars are calling low. The forest hums your name tonight. The wind begins to blow. Ellen's heart kicked in her chest, like it remembered something her mind hadn't caught up to yet. She sat up straighter, nearly dropping the phone. The girl opened her eyes mid-song, bright green, with the same amber fleck in the left iris. Ellen's throat tightened. Her breath caught. The birthmark. There it was, just beneath the girl's left collarbone, a faint smudge shaped like a half-moon. Ellen remembered kissing it when Liliana was a baby. She remembered tracing it with her finger every night during bedtime. Her thumb trembled as she hit replay. Again and again. It had been 18 years. 18 years since Liliana vanished from Whispering Pines summer camp. Since the counselors searched the woods, the lake, the cabins. Since the sheriff stood on her porch with tired eyes and a half-hearted promise. Since they told her there was no body, no signs of struggle, probably wandered off, fell into the lake, they said. No one's fault. And then the silence came. The funeral without a coffin. The pitying looks. The years of static. But now this girl. That voice. That song. That birthmark. Ellen's entire body was shaking. Her mind sprinted toward reason, dragging her heart behind it like a wounded child. It can't be. It's not. It's impossible. Or, she tapped the profile. Maya Echo. Maine. Singer. Storyteller. Survivor. Live now. Maine. The air left Ellen's lungs in a sharp gasp. Her vision blurred for a moment before focusing again. She whispered aloud into the quiet, empty room. Lily. The memory returned not as a linear film, but as flashes of color and sound. Pine needles crunching under sneakers, distant laughter echoing off water, and the way sunlight dappled through the canopy like 1,000 tiny eyes watching from above. July 2007. Whispering Pines summer camp. The last day Ellen saw her daughter. She had driven 3 hours north into the forested hills of Vermont, following the same winding road she traveled 2 weeks prior to drop Liliana off. Lily was only 7, just old enough to attend her first sleepaway camp, and she had begged to go. Please, Mom. All my friends are going. She had even packed her own bag, stuffing it with too many books and not enough socks. That morning, the gravel parking lot had buzzed with energy. Parents stood with open arms as campers spilled from cabins like leaves on the wind, sunburned, tired, smiling. But not Lily. Ellen waited by the open trunk of her car. 10 minutes. Then 20. The counselor at the registration table smiled politely, told her to hang tight. Children zipped past with sleeping bags and stories. Still no Lily. An hour later, panic had settled in her throat like a stone. I'm sure she's around. One of the counselors, a teenage girl with a clipboard and bored eyes, had offered. Maybe at the art shed, but Ellen knew her daughter. She would have come running. She always came running. Camp staff began combing the grounds. Walkie-talkies crackled with terse commands. A whisper of fear snaked through the pines. Someone checked the lake. Then someone else. That night, when the searchlights skimmed the dark surface of the water and divers in wet suits dragged the shore, Ellen had already begun to come undone. They found nothing. No shoe. No towel. No hairbrush. No body. By morning, the sheriff's deputy spoke the words that would haunt her for years. "It's likely she wandered off, ma'am. Into the woods or the lake. It happens sometimes." But Liliana didn't wander. Ellen had never believed that. In the weeks that followed, the camp closed for the season. The investigation stalled. The staff scattered. No charges. No leads. The news crews left. Friends stopped calling. Ellen's marriage cracked and splintered under the weight of grief. But one thing stayed with her. A photograph, faded and curled at the edges, taken on Lily's second day at camp. A candid shot captured by one of the counselors and posted on the camp's Shuttered blog. In it, Lily stood near the dock, holding a yellow towel and grinning. Next to her stood a man. Not a counselor listed in the staff records. Not anyone the other children remembered. A tall man in his 30s. Unshaven. Wearing a green cap and mirrored sunglasses. His hand rested lightly on Lily's shoulder. No one could identify him. Ellen kept the photo in her wallet for years, studying it like scripture. She'd brought it to the police, to journalists, to private investigators. But the man was never found. Some claimed he was a temporary handyman hired mid-season. Others said he might have been a visiting relative. No one knew for sure. They told her to let go. They told her Lily was gone. But Ellen had never stopped looking, never stopped listening. And now, 18 summers later, that same voice had risen again. Not from the woods, not from her dreams, but from a phone screen. From a stranger called Maya Echo. Ellen sat at the kitchen table, the cold light of her laptop screen washing over her tired face. Outside, the night was thick with the hum of cicadas, but inside, a storm was building. She'd created the account an hour ago. A simple username, a few innocuous likes, a profile picture pulled from a stock photo site. Nothing to reveal her identity. Just enough to watch. Maya Echo was streaming again. The girl's voice floated through the speakers, the same lullaby from the TikTok video. That haunting melody, so intimate it felt like a secret shared only between mother and daughter. "Lay down now, my little bird. The stars are calling low." Ellen's fingers trembled as she typed a message into the live chat. "Please, if you see this, you don't know me, but I think you're Liliana. Your mother." Her heart hammered as she stared at the screen. The message sent, but no reply came. Minutes passed. The chat scroll moved on with comments from strangers. "Beautiful voice. Where are you from? You got talent." Ellen's phone buzzed. A text from her friend Karen. "Karen, you really think this girl is your daughter?" "Ellen, it's been 18 years. You might be seeing what you want to see." Ellen's reply came fast, desperate. "I know how it sounds, Karen. But that birthmark, the voice, the lullaby, no one else knew it but me and Lily." Karen's response was gentle but firm. "I get it. But grief plays tricks. Sometimes we latch on shadows. Maybe it's time to let go." Ellen stared at the screen, her mind a battlefield. Was she chasing hope or chasing a ghost? She called Karen. Their conversation was soft but tense. "I need to believe this is real," Ellen whispered. "I've lived with the silence too long." Karen sighed. "I'm scared for you, Ellen. But if it's true, you have to be careful." As the night deepened, Ellen refreshed Maya's profile obsessively, hoping for a sign, a comment, anything. The girl streamed again, smiling shyly at the camera, unaware of the storm she had stirred in a mother's heart halfway across the country. Ellen's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as the miles slipped beneath her tires. The highway stretched out through thick forests and small towns until finally, the landscape gave way to the familiar silhouette of pine trees towering against the gray sky. Maine. Whispering Pines Summer Camp. She hadn't been back here in nearly 2 decades. The camp was shuttered now, overgrown with wildflowers and brambles. The cabins, once echoing with laughter and song, sagged beneath layers of moss and time. The old wooden sign, painted years ago in cheerful green and gold, hung crooked on rusted chains. Ellen pulled into the gravel lot, the crunch of tires loud in the silence. Her breath hitched. Every sound and scent, the pine needles, the damp earth, pulled memories from her chest like sharp knives. She walked slowly, tracing the path she once knew so well. Near the art shed, something caught her eye, a carving in the bark of a young maple tree. The initials L+ are etched deeply into the wood, edges softened by rain and years. Ellen's heart pounded. L for Liliana. But R? She reached out to touch it, her fingertips trembling. A voice startled her. "You found it." Turning, Ellen saw an elderly man leaning on a cane, his weathered face framed by a graying beard. His eyes, sharp despite his years, studied her quietly. "I'm Tom," he said. "Used to be the camp cook here, before they shut it all down." Ellen nodded. "Do you remember anyone named Ray? A counselor or staff member?" Tom's face darkened. Ray was a strange one. Didn't talk much about himself. He kept to the kids, too much sometimes. Folks said he was too attached. When the disappearance happened, he vanished. Just like that. Did anyone ever find out what happened to him? Tom shook his head slowly. No one. He wasn't registered officially. Came and went as he pleased. Some thought he might have been just passing through. But if you ask me, he knew more than he let on. Ellen swallowed hard. This was the first solid lead in 18 years. "Thank you, Tom. This means a lot." Tom gave a small, sad smile. "Be careful, Ellen. Not everything out here wants to be found." Back in her small motel room, Ellen's eyes barely left the screen of her phone. The TikTok live stream had ended hours ago, but the haunting voice of Maya Echo lingered in her mind like a melody she couldn't shake. Determined, Ellen began to dig deeper. She scoured the internet, hunting for clues that might link Maya Echo to something more concrete. After hours of searching, she stumbled upon several related accounts, profiles on Instagram, SoundCloud, and Facebook, all connected by the same username, Maya Richardson. One link caught her eye, a local music school in Portland, Maine, the Eastwood Conservatory. Ellen's heart jumped as she clicked through a public alumni page and found Maya Richardson listed as a student who had enrolled in 2011. More digging revealed a brief article in a local newspaper archive. "Adoption brings new hope. Maya Richardson joins Eastwood Conservatory," dated late 2010. The article mentioned Maya as a bright, talented girl adopted by a couple in Maine, her background described only vaguely, a child with a mysterious past. Ellen's hands trembled. If Maya was born Liliana, vanished from camp in 2007, and was adopted in 2010 under the name Maya Richardson, then someone had hidden her away. Someone had rewritten her life story. Questions flooded Ellen's mind. Who had taken her daughter? Why had she been placed in a private circle with a new name and life? And why was Maya singing that lullaby, a song only Ellen and Liliana knew? Her phone buzzed. A message from Karen. "Karen, any luck? Don't push too hard, Ellen. Sometimes the truth hurts." Ellen sat in the cramped office of a local family lawyer, her fingers nervously tapping on the polished wooden desk. The room smelled faintly of old paper and leather, a place where secrets were kept locked away. "I'm here to request any available records on the adoption of a girl named Maya Richardson," Ellen said steadily. "It's a matter of personal importance." The lawyer, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, paused and adjusted her glasses. "I'm sorry, Ms. Harper, but adoption records in Maine are sealed for privacy reasons. Unless you have a court order or consent from the adoptive parents, I can't release any information." Ellen's heart sank. Is there no way to find out who adopted her, or any intermediaries involved? The lawyer shook her head. "These cases are protected by strict confidentiality laws. Unless you can prove a direct connection or legal claim, there's nothing I can do." Defeated but not discouraged, Ellen left the office with a heavy weight in her chest. Out in the hallway, her eyes caught a flyer pinned on the bulletin board. "Specialized Adoption Services, Gabriel E. Foster, Licensed Facilitator." Something about the name stopped her. She pulled out her phone and, with shaky hands, snapped a quick photo. Gabriel E. Foster. A new lead, a new piece to the puzzle. Back at her motel, Ellen stared at the photo of the flyer, her mind racing. Who was Gabriel Foster? Was he connected to Maya's adoption, the mysterious gap between 2007 and 2010? Ellen sat nervously in a dimly lit cafe, stirring her coffee without really tasting it. Across the table sat Ben Larson, a private detective she had tracked down through a friend. Ben was a solid man in his mid-40s, with a skeptical gaze and a no-nonsense attitude that both comforted and challenged Ellen. "So, you think your daughter is this TikTok singer Maya?" Ben said, folding his arms. "And that there's some shady adoption behind it all?" Ellen nodded. "Yes. There's a missing counselor named Ray, a mysterious adoption facilitator named Gabriel Foster, and now this Maya, who sings the lullaby only my daughter and I know." Ben rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Sounds like a tangle. But you understand how crazy this sounds to most people. I don't care what people think. I need answers. Ben sighed, then reached into his briefcase, pulling out a file. I'll look into Gabriel E. Foster for you. He died in 2019. Heart attack, they say. But here's where it gets interesting. His computer was seized by the FBI. Ellen's eyes widened. Why? Ben glanced around, lowering his voice. There was an investigation into illegal adoptions, trafficking kids across state lines, fake paperwork, the works. Foster was deeply involved. So Maya's adoption might be tied to this. Could be. But the FBI confiscated his digital records. Access is restricted. If you want to crack this, we'll have to find another way in. Ellen felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. This is bigger than I thought, she whispered. Ben nodded. Yeah, and if you're right, you're not just chasing ghosts. You're stepping into dangerous territory. Ellen's resolve hardened. Then let's get to work. Ellen's heart pounded as her phone vibrated with a new message notification. It was from Maya. Hello, Ellen. I saw your message. Sorry for not replying sooner. Ellen hesitated for a moment, then typed back carefully. I know this might be sudden, but I believe we share something important. I think you might be my daughter. Minutes passed, then Maya's reply appeared. I don't know who my real parents are. I was adopted when I was very young. My memories are foggy. Ellen swallowed the lump in her throat. Do you remember anything from before? Anything at all? Sometimes I have nightmares. Water, sand, a forest. But it's like trying to hold smoke. I can't grasp the images clearly. The mention of water and sand made Ellen's breath catch. Liliana had always been terrified of water, despite growing up near the lake. I'm here for you, Ellen typed. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'll listen. Maya's answer came quickly. Thank you. I want to understand, but it's scary. Who can I trust? Ellen's fingers trembled as she wrote back. Trust me. I've never stopped looking for you. The fragile connection was made, but Ellen knew this was just the beginning of a delicate, emotional journey, one that might finally unlock the secrets buried in the past. Ellen sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by yellowing newspaper clippings and photocopied police reports. The soft hum of the fridge was the only sound in the room, but inside her, the tension was deafening. Her fingers trembled as she traced a line in one of the articles, a sentence she had somehow missed all those years ago. Counselor reported missing 3 days after Liliana Wexler's disappearance. Authorities suspect unrelated departure. Unrelated. That word echoed bitterly in her mind. The man's name was never confirmed, but a few documents listed him as Ray D. A temporary hire, no family on file, no next of kin. The camp had noted he left abruptly, but no real effort had ever been made to find him. Ellen stared at the date. It was in early August 2007. She remembered the weather then, the thick, choking humidity, the sudden thunderstorms that shook the windows at night, and then the search parties around the lake. The way the water had gone still. The way people had stopped making eye contact with her. She opened another folder. This one older, edges curled with time. It had been mailed to her months after the case had gone cold. A kind gesture from a retired detective who said he couldn't shake the feeling something had been missed. Inside were handwritten notes, a crude map of the camp, and a few grainy photographs. One photo made her pause. A group shot, campers smiling awkwardly in front of a canoe. In the background, nearly out of frame, stood a tall man with reddish hair and sunglasses. He wasn't looking at the camera. His body was slightly turned, as if ready to walk away. On the back of the photo, a note in pen. Last known image of temp staffer, possible alias, Ray D. Her breath caught. She had seen that face before, or at least something about the shape of it, the slouch of the shoulders, the lean tension in the frame. She flipped through more pages until she found it, a witness statement from a teenage camper. Saw a dark van parked by the maintenance road. Man with red hair loading boxes. Didn't think much of it. A dark van. Ellen's heart raced. With shaking hands, Ellen scanned the photo and sent it to Ben Larson, the private investigator. Do you recognize him? Can you run facial recognition? Please, this could be Ray. Minutes later, the typing indicator blinked. Ben on it. The van's a lead too. I'll check DMV records, old employee logs. This is something, Ellen. Stay ready. Ben Larson sat back in his worn leather chair, the low hum of the detective agency filling the room. The soft glow from his laptop screen illuminated a tired but focused face. After days of digging through databases, old reports, and confidential records, Ben was finally ready to share what he had uncovered about the elusive Ray Matthews. "Well, Ellen," Ben said, voice steady but tinged with gravity as he clicked through folders, "Ray Matthews isn't who we thought he was." Ellen leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. "Ray Matthews was an alias," Ben continued. "His real name was Raymond Duval. And it gets more complicated. This guy changed his identity at least 3 times over the last 15 years. Ellen's breath hitched. "Why? What was he running from?" Ben shrugged. "That's what we need to find out. But I pulled up his last known address. A small cottage deep in the woods near the Canadian border, not far from Maine. Remote. Hard to get to. A perfect place to disappear." He tapped a few keys, bringing up a grainy satellite photo of the cottage, surrounded by dense forest, a narrow dirt road snaking away. "Here," Ben said, pointing. This was his last registered location before he vanished in 2010. "Wait," Ellen interrupted. "That's 3 years after Liliana disappeared." Ben nodded. "Right. And here's the kicker. In 2010, local authorities raided the property. There was an investigation into illegal adoption rings and human trafficking. Ray, or Raymond Duval, was connected to this somehow. After the raid, he disappeared. No one's heard from him since." Ellen's mind reeled. The man who had vanished the day her daughter disappeared wasn't just a troubled counselor. He was involved in something much darker. Ben pulled up an article clipped from an old newspaper. The headline read, "Feds crack down on adoption fraud in northern Maine. Multiple arrests made." The article mentioned a man fitting Raymond's description, but gave no name. "Do you think he had something to do with Maya's adoption?" Ellen whispered. "Seems likely," Ben said grimly. "If he was involved in illegal adoptions, maybe Maya was one of the kids trafficked or sold. And if that's true," his voice trailed off. Ellen swallowed hard. The possibility made her stomach churn. Could her daughter have been taken from that camp and funneled into this underground network? "We need to find out what happened at that cottage after the raid," Ellen said. "Who was arrested? Who wasn't? And where is Raymond now?" Ben nodded, already typing rapidly. "I'll reach out to some old contacts at the FBI," he said. "They seized his computer, remember? Maybe there's something left in the files, something that tells us why he ran and where he went." Ellen felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. After years of silence, the shadows were finally starting to move. "Thank you, Ben," she said quietly, "for believing me, for helping me." Ben gave her a small, tired smile. Sometimes, the hardest part isn't finding the truth. It's knowing what to do when you finally have it. Ben sat in the dimly lit back room of his office, the stale air thick with dust and forgotten memories. Spread across the table were boxes of old evidence files, yellowed paper, brittle photographs, and a few faded cassette tapes. One tape, in particular, caught his eye, a plain white label scrawled with the words Maya, foster case, in shaky handwriting. His fingers trembled slightly as he slid the tape into the ancient player. The mechanical whirring of the cassette filled the silence, followed by the crackle of static, then a faint voice. "Mama," whispered a child's voice, soft and fragile. Ben's heart quickened as the voice grew clearer. It was a little girl singing a lullaby, the same haunting melody Ellen had heard from Maya on TikTok. But this was no ordinary recording. The background was stark, a room with sterile white walls and an unsettling quietness that made every note echo like a secret. Then the voice spoke, not singing now, but softly, almost broken. "Mama didn't come again." Ben paused the tape, heart pounding. He looked at the file beside him. The girl was 9 years old on this recording. 9 years ago, the same age Liliana would have been at the camp. His mind raced as he pulled out his phone to call Ellen. Ellen's small apartment was cold, shadows gathering in the corners as night crept in. When Ben's call came, she answered with shaking hands. "Ellen, I found something," Ben said quietly. "It's a tape, part of the old foster case files. I think you need to hear this." She hesitated but agreed. Ben sent a secure link to a digital copy of the tape, and Ellen played it on her laptop, headphones pressed tightly against her ears. The moment the little girl's voice came through, tears sprang unbidden. The fragile song, the whispered words, It was unmistakably Liliana's voice, and yet it was layered with something more: fear, loneliness, and a desperate longing. Mama didn't come again. The words hit Ellen like a physical blow. For 18 years, she had imagined what her daughter must have felt, but hearing it so plainly shattered every guarded wall. Ellen's breath hitched, and she pressed her hand to her mouth. The memories surged in. The last time she saw Liliana, the hopeful smiles, the promises to come back, and then the endless silence. She wiped tears away, her fingers trembling as she rewound the tape to listen again. "I'm so sorry, baby," she murmured. "I'm coming for you." Back in the office, Ben watched Ellen's reaction through the video call, his own eyes shadowed with exhaustion and resolve. "That voice," he said softly, "it's the same girl Maya told you about. The one with the nightmares. This recording, it's proof she's connected to Liliana. There's no denying it. But why was she recorded? Who was watching her?" Ellen asked, clutching a warm blanket around her shoulders. Ben's gaze hardened. Someone was keeping tabs on her. Maybe as part of the adoption ring. Or worse. It means the people behind all this knew exactly what they were doing. And they wanted a record. The silence between them was heavy. For the first time, the pieces of the puzzle felt close to fitting. But the picture they formed was darker than either had imagined. "Ellen," Ben said, "this tape is more than just a recording. It's a cry for help. We have to find out who made it, who held your daughter captive, and why." Ellen nodded, tears still streaming down her cheeks. "I'm ready, Ben. No more waiting." Ellen sat rigidly, eyes fixed on her laptop screen as Ben shared the latest findings. The photo flickered, then froze. A man's face, sharp and intense, stared back at her. It was a picture of Raymond Duval, the elusive Ray, but something about it felt familiar, like a ghost from another life. Ben's voice was low, almost hesitant. "We cross-referenced this with the adoption files for Maya. The man who signed the papers as her adoptive father is Raymond Duval." Ellen's breath caught in her throat. "That's impossible. Ray was never supposed to have any legal ties." "But the records don't lie," Ben replied. "He must have assumed a different identity at some point, maybe multiple times, but this is him. The same man who vanished after the camp shut down is listed as Maya's adoptive parent." The room felt colder. Ellen's mind spun with questions. How deep did this go? Who was protecting Ray? And why had he been allowed to adopt her daughter? Ben continued. "We traced his last known address to a small, weathered house in rural Vermont. It's isolated, perfect for someone wanting to disappear." Ellen's fingers trembled as she pulled up the satellite images. A modest cottage surrounded by thick trees, no neighbors close by. The kind of place where secrets could stay buried for years. Had the police gotten involved? Ellen asked cautiously. Ben nodded. "Yes. After we submitted the evidence, the local Vermont police started surveillance. They've been discreetly watching the property for weeks. Something's definitely going on there." Ellen's heart pounded. For years, the official story had been that Liliana was lost to the lake. An accident. No foul play suspected. But now, with this new evidence, the possibility of kidnapping was finally being taken seriously. Her phone buzzed with a message from Karen, her old friend who had been skeptical at first, but now seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. "Be careful, Ellen. You're stirring up shadows that some don't want lit." The words echoed ominously in her mind. Ben pulled up a recent photo of the house's front porch, captured by a surveillance drone. A figure appeared, tall, cautious, moving with a purpose. Ellen's breath hitched. "Is that Ray?" she asked. Ben shook his head. "Unknown. Could be someone else. Maybe a relative or an accomplice. But whoever it is, they don't want to be seen." Ellen stared at the screen, her resolve hardening. This house was a linchpin, the place where years of silence might finally break. She thought back to the little girl's voice on the tape, frightened, alone, calling for her mother. Was this where Maya had spent those early years? Hidden, silenced? The weight of that thought pressed down on her chest. "Ben," Ellen whispered, voice steady despite the storm inside. "We have to get inside that house. We need answers for Maya, for me, for Liliana." Ben nodded, the steely determination in his eyes matching hers. "I've already talked to the detective in Vermont. They're ready to move once we get a warrant." Ellen exhaled slowly. The shadows were finally being unveiled, But what awaited inside that house could change everything, for better or worse. The morning air was crisp and heavy with anticipation as Ellen, Ben, and the local police cruised quietly down the winding road toward the small Vermont cottage. The trees loomed tall and silent, shadows stretching long across the dirt driveway. Ellen's heart hammered in her chest. Every mile closer brought a storm of memories she wasn't sure she could face. Ben glanced at her, voice low but firm. "Are you ready for this?" Ellen swallowed hard, nodding. "I have to be." They pulled up to the weathered house. The porch sagged, paint peeling like brittle skin. The windows were darkened by grime, and the front door showed fresh scratch marks, signs someone had been trying to keep others out. A team of officers moved swiftly, surrounding the property. Ben handed the warrant to the lead detective, who gave a terse nod before signaling the breach. Ellen's breath caught as the door creaked open. Inside, the air was stale, filled with the scent of damp wood and forgotten years. Then she saw him, Raymond Duval, older, grayer, but unmistakably the same man. His eyes flashed with defiance as the officer stepped forward. "I'm not the villain you think I am," he shouted, voice rough with anger and desperation. "I saved her. I saved her from a mother who couldn't protect her. You don't understand." Ellen's eyes locked on his. "You don't get to decide what's best for my daughter." Ray's glare shifted, then softened as he turned to the young woman standing just behind Ellen. "Maya, or Liliana." Maya's face was pale, her hands trembling. The room seemed to shrink around her as memories, fragmented and raw, surged to the surface. "Mom." Her voice was a whisper, uncertain and fragile. Ellen stepped forward, tears blurring her vision. "Yes, baby, it's me. I've been looking for you all these years." Maya shook her head, struggling against the flood of feelings. I remember things. The lake, the dark van, and the singing." Her eyes welled with tears. "Why didn't you come for me?" Ellen reached out, her voice breaking. "I never stopped trying. I love you." Ray clenched his fists, his voice cracking. "She was scared of losing you. I promised I'd keep her safe, away from the lies and pain." Ben stepped closer, firm but calm. "Ray, your time hiding is over. The truth needs to come out." Maya collapsed into Ellen's arms, sobbing. The years of silence and separation unraveling in a single moment. Ellen whispered over her daughter's trembling shoulders, "We'll get through this. Together." The sterile white walls of the therapy room felt both safe and suffocating to Maya. She sat stiffly on the edge of the chair, fingers nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. Across from her, Dr. Lawson watched patiently, notebook resting on his lap but eyes fully attentive. "Take your time," he encouraged softly. "Tell me what you remember." Maya's gaze drifted to the window, where late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds. Memories floated in and out of focus, shards of a past that felt both distant and too close. "I remember the lake, the cold water, how it froze over," she murmured. "The dark van that came at night. But then, it's like there's a fog, and everything else is just shadows." Dr. Lawson nodded gently. "It's common for traumatic memories to be fragmented, but telling your story can help bring clarity." That evening, back at the small apartment Ellen had rented, Maya sat at the worn wooden desk, a fresh notebook open before her. The words came slowly at first, tentative and jagged, but soon formed into something steadier. "I'm the girl from the woods, the one who vanished without a trace, lost between two worlds, the one I was born into and the one I was forced to live." Ellen watched from the doorway, her heart aching and hopeful all at once. She crossed the room, sitting beside Maya, and placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your story matters," Ellen whispered. "We'll face it together." For the first time in years, Maya allowed herself to lean into the warmth of that connection, the mother she had never truly known, yet somehow always felt within her. But the healing was far from simple. One night, after they had talked and laughed for hours, Maya's smile faltered. She looked away, voice trembling. "I feel like I'm two people," she confessed. "One who remembers the darkness and the fear, and another who wants to believe there's something good waiting for me. But I don't know which is real." Ellen's eyes softened with understanding. "It's okay to feel that way. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure it out, step by step." Days turned into weeks. Maya continued therapy, learning to navigate the tangled web of her memories and emotions. She wrote more in her notebook, calling it the girl from the woods, a testament to her journey through loss, pain, and the fragile hope of reunion. Slowly, the distance between mother and daughter lessened, replaced by tentative trust and love, fragile, yet fiercely alive. But beneath it all, a question lingered, heavy and unanswered. How had Ray really fit into Maya's story? And what truths still waited in the shadows? A year had passed since Maya's return to Ellen's life, a year filled with hard work, therapy sessions, late-night conversations, and fragile moments of trust slowly knitting their fractured relationship back together. But tonight was different. The old theater in Portland, Maine was packed. Soft murmurs buzzed through the crowd, but as the house lights dimmed, a hush fell. The stage was bathed in gentle blue light, and at center stage stood Maya, poised, radiant, and calm. Her fingers brushed the microphone, and with a slow, steady breath, she began to sing. The opening notes of the lullaby that had haunted Ellen's dreams for nearly 2 decades floated into the air, clear, haunting, familiar. Ellen sat in the darkened audience, tears blurring her vision. The song was the same one Maya had sung as a frightened child on the tape found by Ben, the song that had once been their secret. It was a voice both broken and strong, carrying the weight of loss and the fragile hope of healing. She wiped her cheeks, fighting the lump in her throat. Pride and sorrow battled inside her chest. That voice, her daughter's voice, had survived the silence of years, the shadows of an erased past. As Maya's song reached its final notes, the crowd rose to their feet, applause roaring like a wave crashing onto shore. But for Ellen, the sound was something more. It was the sound of a life reclaimed. Backstage, the glow of phones capturing the moment reflected in Maya's eyes. Her lips curved into a tentative smile. The little girl lost in the woods had found her way back into the light. The video of the concert spread rapidly online. Comments poured in. The girl who returned from nothing, a miracle of hope. Her voice healed us all. Overnight, Maya's story became a symbol of resilience and the power of love's unbroken thread. Later that night, Ellen sat by the small kitchen table, a letter resting in her hands. Maya's handwriting, neat and deliberate. Mama, I still don't remember everything. Some nights the past is like a dark cloud, heavy and cold. But the voice inside me, the one that sings, that cries, that hopes, that voice is yours. It's the echo of your love. Thank you for never giving up on me, for searching through shadows and silence, for being my home. Love, Maya. Ellen folded the letter carefully, clutching it close to her heart. The long, painful journey was far from over. Memories would return in pieces, shadows would linger, and healing would come slowly. But now she knew one undeniable truth. No matter what the past had taken, their voices, together, could never be silenced. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of a home slowly being rebuilt, Ellen let her tears fall freely. They were tears of grief and relief, of pain and love, of endings and new beginnings. Her daughter's voice had returned, and with it hope.